it was very powerful. Like agency, right? We spoke before about agency, so it gave me so much agency. And it just allowed me to see the like empowerment, like how much power as humans have in learning to deal with pain, with distance, with memory, with many things that I was young at the time. I was you're learning so many things, right? In my case, like letting go was a very important one.
Welcome to the show, Juan.
Thank you so much, Patrick. Thanks for having me.
So glad we finally got connected. We tried to connect last week, but we're now connecting this week. I'm just so glad to have you on. I've been looking at your work, of course, on your webpage, and reading a little bit about some of your projects. And I think you're such a great addition to this basically this project in general, the podcast. So thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you. I think you guys are doing an amazing work when it comes to talking about processes and ideas and projects. And it's much needed. So yeah.
Thank you. I get the privilege to sit in this seat and talk to all these people from around the world. So I sometimes pinch myself. I'm like, are you kidding me? I get to do this? So it is such a pleasure. It's such a pleasure. And I think you're going to, you being on the show today is such a treat for everyone. So before we get started and jump into your work, go ahead and take a little moment and introduce yourself to the audience.
Wow, that's what we were like speaking before, how difficult it is to introduce oneself. And I think lately, as of late, I call myself like a generalist. Traditionally, coming from visual arts, I've been an artist working for many years, and also a researcher. I'm just doing my PhD. I'm an anthropologist as well. That's part of my background, which is again it's a mix of many things, and which I really appreciate, I have to say. These days, having so many inputs and inspiration coming from many different disciplines, I find it a gift. So I would say that's me. So visual artist,
researcher, person.
Exactly, a human. I'm a human. Tuesdays and Thursdays, there is.
Yeah, a sapien. Yeah, we got that. We got that part. Yeah. No, thank you so much again for coming on. But I'm kind of curious. You know, you are a photographer. You are an artist. Were you always someone that was kind of into art? Talk to me about how you became a photographer. How it found you, or you found it. Chicken before the egg kind of conversation. I don't know how to. Talk to me a little about the origins.
I think that it found me. My grandfather, he was a guy of many talents. He taught me how to play guitar, how to whistle, how to be playful, and he loved photography. So he had a little dark room in his living room. And as a kid, I always remember being blown away by this. It was this little corner where so many hidden objects were just calling my attention. I was not supposed to be in there, but I was always sneaking around. I was absolutely fascinated by all the little things, how to like kind of photographs and to the little lenses he used. So that was my first introduction to something that to see the negatives, the smell of the negatives. That's what I remember vividly. And then I kind of sort of stole the camera of my mom. My mom, you think, she got it from my grandfather when he passed away, and my mom got two cameras. So I said, Mom, I'm gonna get one. I got the camera of my grandfather. So it was a Spotmatic Pentax. I still have, and I adore that camera. So that was my
Yeah.
first introduction. Sorry?
It was a good camera. That's a good camera.
It's a great camera. It's absolutely, it's a great camera. And I was able to practice. I was able to learn. I knew nothing. I remember just going to a shop, then asking the guy behind the counter, like, hey, listen, I need some film. I was on holidays with friends. I was 14, 15, or no, a bit older, maybe 16. And just asking the person, like, hey, how is this whole thing working? And the guy just looked at me like, dude, I mean, this is the shutter, that's the speed, this is the lens. Quick, he said 125, that's 16, it's sunny, you go out and take photos. And that was it, like 2 minutes. And I was like, okay, this is where I will not touch it. And then I explored for a long time. A very close friend of mine, he's a very good photographer. So he taught me many, many, many things. He showed me how to work in the darkroom and all these beautiful things and the technique, the technological aspect behind it. So that was very important for me. And then, yeah, one day I studied media science, also like part of the education with media science. One subject was photography. So that was the first time that I had the chance to study more in depth photography. But I knew it all the technicalities, but I was not really close to process, context, art, all these things behind the camera. They're super important, obviously. And yeah, so then I really liked it. I fell in love with it. I kept taking photographs, and one day I got a grant, and I went to Brazil. It was a beautiful project. It was about photography and anthropology, actually. And 25, 30 years later, I'm still doing the same. So it was really beautiful. I was very lucky to get that grant.
Yeah, that was going to be my question was,
Yeah.
when does it, because, a lot of people pick up the camera and they become photographers, but very few of them, start to take it seriously and kind of jump in either a professional direction or an artistic direction. And it sounds like that grant was something that you got. Did you have to submit a portfolio or something, or what?
It was
What helped you?
Sorry, please go ahead.
No. What did you have to do?
It was an academic grant. It was given by the university. So
Okay.
I was supposed to work with to rescue the negatives and all the plates, all the information that senior photographers were using at the time. So we were traveling around the state of Goiás, which is huge, and then we would meet people, interview amazing photographers and creatives and artists, and then ask them about their processes and try and recontextualize their whole creative endeavor. And then we would take all that information and negatives, and then we work at the university trying to restore those negatives and trying to come up with anthropological insights of the context where photos were created, which situations, difficulties, pains, gains, these sort of things. So it was really truly fascinating.
So when you think of, because you're a researcher now, I'm kind of now making a connection here between your current research and your kind of the way you look at it. Do you look at photography? Well, I guess let me reframe my question here. So photography for you, was it kind of documentary at first? When did you, because you do have some work that seems conceptual and less, indexical in nature. So how did it start out for you? Was it very documentary, and then this research thing, you were like, oh my gosh, I can do something with this, and then so talk to me about that kind of evolution for you.
Yeah, that's a really good question, because that usually means that you follow one path or or the other one, and then at some point they
Split it.
intertwine. But it really depends what you want to do. So
That's
at first
100%.
I was fascinated with documentary. Think like I was not coming from the art world, and meaning and without being absolutely disrespectful to the medium, I was just simply not aware of it.
Yeah.
I didn't know anything about it. So photography was this beautiful discipline tool mechanism, ecology, if I may say that, like that allowed me to interact with certain things that I was not able to interact without the camera. So to pay attention to certain things, and the camera facilitated paying attention to certain things. So it was about documenting something. And I remembered like some of my first references were, people working with, documentary photography and street photography. And I was fascinated by it. And that's
it gives you access, it opens up doors. And I think I think I talked to a lot of National Geographic people, and they say that they talk about access a lot. And so like, it can provide that, but yet, that access also drives a certain, I guess, direction for the creative output of it a lot of times, because you want to be respectful, you want to do all these other things. And then this is kind of the deviation between art, it's where the access is you you do it and whatever you coordinate. And so like, I'm curious how you walk those two worlds. And
I was always very nervous around people.
were you?
I like people from time to time. I'm kidding, of course. I'm one of them. So I'm one of them. So of course I love people. But it's true that I used the camera to sort of shield. It was sort of a shield to do something else, right? So it was a huge effort to be using the camera with people, because I needed to create something. So I remember it was draining the energy in many, many ways. And I never believed this, it's like an anthropology, right? That you don't interfere with the object or subject or motive, whatever you're doing. You do interfere just because of your presence. You're there. So then it's like in anthropology, observing without interfering is just, it doesn't make any sense. So there is this participant observation where you need to learn with the object, subject, whatever you're doing. And then you are part of the process of mutual learning, right? That's how I see it. So I never understood photography as a way to detach myself from it. I wanted to be part of life, basically, like whatever is happening in front of me. So, and the camera was a beautiful tool for that. And at the very beginning, documentary photography was my entry. There was the access to that, but it quickly changed rapidly, actually, because when I came back from this grant, I got hired, and this is something that I rarely talk about. So I think it's a nice opportunity to reflect on that, because I feel extremely fortunate and lucky to have been part of that. So they hired me. There was this art festival in Valencia, and in my city. I'm from there, and so many artists, international, amazing artists, were working at the time. So they hired me to help coordinate and produce their work. All of a sudden, I was working with people like Richard Nonas, Dennis Oppenheim, Marina Abramovich, all these amazing names that belong to the beautiful discipline of the art world, right? And I think I was lucky because I didn't know much about that. So I was not intimidated by them. So I got to meet the people and work with them, and then be fascinated by their ideas, their processes. So I got right away super inspired. So they hired me to work with Sebastián Salgado, and that was like a moment of change, where I got to work with one of my, like references that you, as a aspiring photographer, documentary, then you're looking to all those images and that work. So that chapter of my life kind of made me reflect on, the values of photography, how images produced, and how you think of projects, and how you approach them, what means to do a project at such scale, um, and all the elements that need to be in your favor for something to happen.
Yeah.
So that already gave me a huge tip about the complexity of the things that we do. And right away I thought, okay, wow, this is pretty amazing. But I think my interest lies in something different. Yeah, I think it's my interest is somewhere else. So, and that's why I got super inspired by all these people like Suja Kim, like as I mentioned, all these amazing artists. And I thought that, how can I integrate what I already know about photography and image making and these other disciplines, these other ways, mediums of doing, right? And then I remembered that was the moment of, oh, okay, wow, I can see myself always integrating and working with images, but not necessarily. I think I can do something else. So yeah, that was one of the moments where things changed, and then from documentary photography, and then I moved into something else by translation.
It's interesting. And so like you had this great opportunity to kind of it almost like look behind the veil a little bit, but also be connected to something that you enjoy doing. And so like was this a part of the university that you were at? And were you were studying photography, correct? You ended up like, so you ended up from, being inspired to be a photographer, you ended up choosing to go to school for it and expanding in such ways. So talk to me about how you developed, why you ended up going in the direction that you did. You have a lot of academic credentials, so you definitely know a little bit about the medium and you've practiced it. So talk to me about what it meant to develop, what your developmental path looked like. You don't have to go into every, every little detail, but like why you went to school, who was important to you, like that kind of stuff. I'm kind of curious about that because to me, there's that moment, that aha moment, which it sounds like you had there with that project in Brazil, and then you go, I want to do this. And then you go, okay, now I need to get from here to there. And then there's this developmental path. And I'm always curious about that path.
Yeah. No, yeah, that's I think, wow, that's a tough question, because but it's it's real. I mean, it's okay. So how can I put this? My MA was in media science. So I started cinema, like TV, and these sort of mediums. So that gave me a narrative structure and helped me to have a fairly okay technical understanding of how like light work, how cameras work, how production is done, and then I also worked in TV for a bit. So being a light designer and then a producer, so I was also helping. Actually, was working as a promo producer for a brief period of my life. Again, I just learned as much as I could from everyone, because it's highly technical. It's a highly technical work job. So then it's, I always appreciate that technical side of me. And so finished the media science, and that's when I actually, then I went to Brazil, and then when I came back, I was almost almost done with my study, with media science. And then I got involved in this art biennale. It was a biennial. And then I worked with this artist. I supported them. I produced, coordinated their projects, and assisted them in as much as I could. And learn, obviously. And then, then that stage, actually, that was the time where I produced and directed 2 documentaries about creative process. And one was about the creative process, and the other one was about the ideal city. So how all these amazing artists thought of the perfect city. And then, and that was it. I was just passionate to learn as much as I could from their making, their processes. So I thought that making a movie was the right thing to do. And I, at the time, was working at the TV, so I had experience in that. It was fairly easy to get access and to many things.
That's cool.
And that was a bit of it. And then when I finished, like, first professional experiences happened, and then I knew I wanted to explore what it means to be an artist and the art world, and I knew nothing about it. So how do you do it? No idea. So I knew that I needed a bit more photography background, and to learn more about photography, but not the technical side of it, but what it means to be a person who worked with images and creates images. So I went to New York, and I took some courses at the ICP, International Center of Photography, and that again was a changing moment. I took one course under Robert Blake, an amazing instructor. We just talked about images. We produced some images, but we just talked about images. And I just remember some of his. He was hard, but he was amazing. He was amazingly hard. He gave us one assignment, and then I came up with these images. And I remember showing the images in the room, and his comment was like, "Hey, okay, well, I see all these photographic decisions, and I see why you did this." And I assumed that was around 7, 8 a.m. So he could read the image perfectly, and I was like, "Wow." He just told me, "But okay, I see all those things, but I can't see the intention." And I was like, "What you mean?" No, just it's there, your image, but I can't see the intention behind it. And that was hard and great. It was those moments of, okay, now I'm starting to understand how this whole thing works. Okay, thank you for that. So it goes beyond all these rational, all these technical decisions, all these sort of things. So let's construct things based on intention, based on movement, based on emotion, based on all those things. And that was like a shifting moment. And then he was also the person who said, "Hey, things happen, between your lens and the subject or object, whatever you're looking at. So the real work is in between. This is your camera, this is you, and that's the object subject. But the space in between is where you really have to work if you want to go somewhere." And also that just made me reframe everything that I knew at the time. So pivotal moment.
That is, I think, the big moment that I had was just to kind of bring it all into a little circle here. Is that, like, you can learn all technique. You can learn technique all day. You can nail an image, but to be able to kind of show that intent, what he was trying to. I don't see what you're intending here. I don't understand that. That's difficult unless you're clear about what it is that you're thinking about, or you know what I mean? You have to have that. Technique is only one part, but often tell people is get to the point to where the camera disappears and it has nothing to do with the camera anymore.
100%.
And once you can forget about just exposing it correctly, now you're thinking, now you're expressing, now you're kind of moving into another direction. It sounds like you were getting that kind of feedback there. So ICP is, I hear a lot about ICP. There's a lot of famous people that go through there, especially in the photography world. So, and I'm like, oh, maybe I should go check it out. Maybe I should get invited. Hey, anybody? But no, as far as, I'm kind of understanding a little bit about kind of your origins, how you kind of developed yourself, and how you found your way into photography. So talk to me a little bit about who inspires you. I'm sure, you found some people that you sounds like that last instructor that you had was very impactful on you, but who else is kind of an inspiration? Who inspires you and influences you?
Many of the artists that I encounter when I was 24, 25, people like Richard Nonas, people like Suja Kim, people like I don't know, like that. Usually, I would say is most of my inspiration comes from oftentimes, like most of the time, outside of the art world. So reading and literature and research, and that's what actually creates the base for some of of my projects to happen. But when it comes to like images, I was always fascinated by like artists, like sculptor, like Richard Nonas. I would say he was a beautiful inspiration, and Suja, of course, I had the pleasure to work with, and Axel Hütte, who I also met him, and we worked in some projects, and then I consider him as a friend and a mentor in many, many ways. And it's people who help you find your own. And I hate this already. I'm hating this expression, but finding your own voice, is. I have many voices. I don't have one, but
funny. I was talking about. We were talking about before the show. Like I'm kind of a parrot, and so I pick up accents, on accident.
Yeah.
And like I'm thinking about when you say I have many voices, it's like you have many accents. So yeah, I'm just kidding. But no, to your point is, I don't know. When I first heard that phrase, I thought it was kind of cheesy, a little bit cliche, But now it's kind of changed its meaning to me. I think to find your own voice. I think it is. It means like being empowered to make something and say something. I think it's almost like you're empowered more than anything to think about something, to express it, to put it out there. I don't know how many people make things and it just sits in a hard drive or sits in a closet and no one ever gets to see it.
Yeah.
And so like, I think finding your voice is in a lot of ways that empowerment to kind of take an idea, express it, and put it out there, I think.
Thanks for expressing it in a much better way. That's my alignment. Thank you, Patrick.
Well, I just find it that way because I'm kind of in that place. I get done with my master's, and I feel like you and I are followed a very similar track. In some ways, I'm now in this very kind of this project where I'm meeting contemporary artists from around the world, and I'm interviewing them about their practice and looking at their work and diving into inspirations and stuff. And so I'm just inspired by everyone that I talk to, including you. So like I am when I meet people and I listen to them, it's like they're also inspiring. Of course, they should put their work out. It's phenomenal. But then I've got like these filled up folders on my hard drive that I've never shown anybody. So you inspire me to do that, and I'm sure you're inspiring other people that are listening today. So
I would suggest like not to think too much about it. I think that was something that I'm way more conscious right now, like getting older. Right, when I was 20 plus, I just did it. I submitted my work to this prize. I submitted my work to this grant, and sometimes it worked, and I got a grant, prize, an exhibition, and sometimes didn't. And that was this. I was adventurous. I didn't really think. I didn't know how to do it otherwise. I mean, in a different way, right? And somehow it worked in many ways because most of the time you get rejected, right? That's part of the process and that's the beautiful way, because then you get to iterate, you get to change your project, and then you reshape it, not because somebody told you to do so, but just because you listen, if you're willing to listen, right? And to say, hey, maybe I didn't get it right the first time. And that is okay, because I often compare the artistic process as well with design thinking, design processes. And like, okay, we need to come up with some research. We come with certain ways of finding pains and needs that we have, that other people have. We put them together, and then we come with our own hypotheses, ideas, research questions, and then we have to iterate. We have to just going back and forth. And this movement, I think that is really interesting, because time gives you perspective on things, which is really valuable. It doesn't mean you have to be changing the whole time, but some things don't change much, and some others, they do change because maybe they were not right in the first place. That is okay. That's absolutely okay.
That's awesome. It's I can kind of relate to it, and I really, really appreciate that. And now I'm thinking about you and your work, and I'm kind of curious now. It's like you've kind of found your way into making your own work, doing research. And so talk to me a little bit about some of the subjects and the things that you like to look at in your own work.
Yeah. Okay. So as I mentioned before, part of my background is anthropology. So,
yeah.
And at some point I realized that I was very interested in the topics that the anthropological discipline studies and writes about. So then I thought of, okay, how can I work with all these topics that are related to the anthropological knowledge and discipline, and use art. And then this combination just happened, started to make sense for me, like how art and anthropology are so related that gave me room to grow, to come up with ideas. And always, instead of grabbing anthropological topics, I thought, okay, I'm going to get the anthropological knowledge from a different place. So I will not be working on it superficially, but I will try and work from the other way around, which is inside, being part of it. And some of the topics I always moved between everything is personal, but at the end, very personal stories from history, and others they have a bit more distance, which is very healthy for me. I move from some very personal topics to others that they help me move to the next personal one. So I think I just go that way. And one of I would say that maybe I've always been fascinated by like time and memory, all the different dimensions of time, right? Past, present, and future, or futures, as we like to say. And I'm fascinated by the meaning of place and space and movement, and they're very abstract things. But then when you look at this topic's inspiration and then the work that is produced, then it has a very, yeah, I don't know, I can't find that word, but it would be like that. It has the right shape. Let's
So
put it that way.
are you, when you like that kind of, sounds like you're influenced through by anthropology. Come on, Patrick, anthropology, right?
Yeah.
And I always seem to like, I've been taking too many French classes, so like I'm struggling now with real English words. But
Like me.
yeah, but but often they kind of have a focus, and so like you're focused on like memory and some
Mhm.
other things. So is it sometimes they look at like regional
Mhm.
places, and is there a particular region or place that fascinates you, that makes you think, or anything like that, that kind of a particular history of a place that has your attention or makes you curious? I know we have that one project
Yeah.
that we're going to look at that looks at your own
Mhm.
personal family history, which does zero in on a particular place. Uh, are there any
Yeah.
others that kind of inspire you?
That was, yeah. I don't know. You're talking about blow remembering. This no, I think you're talking about becoming exergy. If I'm
Becoming Exergy, yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
okay. So I think that blow remember blow remembering was one of the first project that I allow myself to work on a deeply personal level. It was yeah, like the first time that I was learning how to let go.
Mhm.
And and if we talk about photography and the medium, then you mentioned something really before, something that I think is very important, which is disappearing and the act of disappearing or disappearance with a camera. And then so many things happen when you're not visible in some ways. So the act working with large format, for example, allows, it's one way of doing that, allows you to disappear. You disappear behind that beautiful blanket, and then
You just
nobody sees you. Yeah, you're just a dark
yeah.
entity in the middle of something, and that gives you superpowers, right? Then it's about talking about more of the philosophy behind it, which is for me when that happens, all the narrative, all the intellectual decisions have already been taken. So when I disappear behind that camera or that gadget, then all the rational is done. All the
Mhm.
rationale is just behind it. And now it's about rearranging the world. And looking through that device allows me to rearrange the world in a way that feels more meaningful to me, makes more sense. I'm able to organize a bit the noise, that I have either here or outside or I relate to. So somehow it's not about thinking about it, but doing something about it.
Mhm.
And it feels really hands-on, even though it takes literally a fraction of a second to create something. But in that fraction of a second, there are many, 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 many different times. There's your past, your present, and your future are all in, you know.
I think it's a good opportunity to go ahead and jump into your work. So we've been kind of general about the
Mhm.
explanation there. So now we
Yeah.
can kind of get into some of the details, get into the weeds. So where do you want to start with?
I think I have here like some projects that we organized to show you. We could briefly see this, for example, blood remembering. That
Okay,
was
let's start there.
one of the big grants that I was able to, you know, to
Okay.
get. So
Okay, perfect.
so this is it's called blood remembering, and this was literally, so it's a project about letting go. That was a time where my dad had passed away, and he wanted to go to Rome. He always wanted to go to Rome, so he never made it. So I thought, okay, uh, I'll try and do it. I'll go. and then I'll try and have the trip that he never had. So I went to all the places that I thought he would enjoy visiting. So, and of course, that's me. That's a young version of Juan, visiting all these the beautiful parts of Rome where I had the pleasure to live for a year. I got this amazing grant that allowed me to take the time to think and build something. Um, yeah, with so many, like so much help and people allowing you to do what you wanted to do. So yeah, all these images they are part of that project that was about learning how to let go. And I think that I will show you the reason why I wanted to show you briefly this project is because it was the first time that I worked on something else that was not photography. So it was the first time that I work on installation and I use eyes. That was something that just happened there. It was the right context, right, to have all these beautiful inputs and then put all those ideas together. So it was the first time that, I went outside of the comfort of photographic comfort, and I just found images in flea markets, and I was collecting those images, and then for 1 year, I collected the water of it was rain. That's rainwater. So it was winter rain and autumn and summer rain, and all the different seasons were frozen. And I froze the images. I created this very specific break, which is a Roman break. It's called matone, Roman matone. And then I decided to experiment with it and see how time works. Just how much time was needed to melt all this rain. And these images for me were pieces of someone else's memory, right? And dreams and hopes, and of course, all these indexes of slice time spaces, right? Different people. So the idea was once that is gone, all those images got stuck together. And that was, again, the first time that I thought, how will people interact with that when they find that on the floor in front of, because there were several images around in the exhibition room. So how will people understand this? Will they dare to touch them? Because I wanted them to touch them. I wanted them to search to see the image that is behind the first image. And of course, some people, they tried, they did it. And what happened was what I expected, which is the images broke. And because they were just glued together. And that was fascinating because that was the perfect outcome of how memories work, at least the way I understood them. Like some parts of a mental image stays and some others, they just go away, they disappear. Mm-hmm. So that was the first time where I kind of found profound meaning in the making, right? That, So
how long did it take to melt?
I think it was 5 days.
4 or 5 days.
Yeah, I think it was 3-4 days. I remember they took a bit of time.
What month were you?
Actually, that was June.
Really?
Yeah.
So hot there.
The AC was working.
Oh, the AC. Okay. Yeah.
And
I was actually surprised, that it would last that long. It's June in Italy, so
it's warm.
Yeah, it's pretty hot. Yeah, not yet though. It gets really hot in July and August, but it's interesting. Yeah. So did you take these photos by yourself?
Yeah, and that was large format camera, and a really lovely good friend of mine who is an amazing artist, Amaya Bombin. She helped me. I would ask people to come with me from time to time and write, and then they would just click and take the photograph. So I stole their time, but that's yeah. But that was the beauty of it, right? It was
Yeah.
is moment of time in time where like 10, 12 people we live together, and then we have so much time to exchange. So I would help them the next day. I would be working on in their project or something like that.
That's interesting. So was it what did it mean for you to kind of follow in you said your father's kind
Mm.
of to complete a bucket list thing how did that feel for you? When you reflect on it?
Uh, it was very powerful. Like agency, right? We spoke before about agency, so it
Sure.
gave me so much agency. And it just allowed me to see the like empowerment, like how much power as humans have in learning to deal with pain, with distance,
Mm.
with memory, with many things that I was young at the time. I was or younger. Let's say that's nicer. I was 20. No, that's not true. 29, I think, something
Mm.
like that. And yeah, so that was the time that I was. It's a moment in time where still you're learning so many things, right? In my case, like letting go was a very important one. Uh,
It's a hard one. That's a hard one. It's interesting that so many people use art and ways to heal and to overcome. And I think that's interesting. Not only did you get that, but you also got a grant to go and do that. That's
yeah,
cool.
yeah, exactly. I mean, it all
What a cool.
made perfect sense. It just
Yeah.
made perfect sense because my dad wanted to go there, and then I mean, I didn't need to come up with anything that was not true, right? That was it. So I needed just to put all the pieces together and then come up with, okay, how am I going to organize everything and what's the outcome? This was not planned. This happened. Okay, I could work on this as well, and then collecting this, like the water from every season, is a very metaphorical and powerful way of talking about time, and then working with somebody's images and I'm thinking of them, and so everything kind of made sense together. And of course, when you have something physical and it's cold and it's frozen in time, then you right away I learned, okay, uh, this is gonna melt. Everything goes away. We all go away. So it's a beautiful way of learning that it's just a moment in time and space, and that's it. So accept it, and yeah, it was absolutely powerful, at least for me.
That's interesting. You said you were 29. You were young. I'm like, what was that? 5 years ago for you? What's that?
5 years ago. Thank you. Oh my God.
We're so young already. You look so young.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Yeah.
No, actually, it was a long time ago. That was almost
Yeah, it's interesting. The found photograph in Europe is kind of unique. I
actually.
haven't I haven't really seen that until I got here. And so until I got here and I started going to these little markets and little marchés and stuff, and have
Yeah.
old photographs that people have I guess let go to time. And so it's interesting how you reuse those. And that's kind of
Yeah.
a unique way of doing that. And I love the historical context to architecture, especially making a form based off of a brick that was
Yeah, exactly. And but something really beautiful happened, which I think it was, as you can imagine, it was very hard to find somebody working on ice, uh, or with ice that would be part of this crazy idea. It's like, hey, I just want to freeze stuff in your company. Will you allow me? Of course I'll pay, but and then we found many people, and then I met this amazing guy that just came over. I went to his space, which it was huge, and then he said, "I'm so happy you're here. I'm so glad you're here." Right? I've been looking for an artist for a long time. And I said, "What?" Like, yeah, I'm so glad you're here. So, um, I, you already told me what you want, but I'm trying to find somebody that is able to work with sculpture because I'm sculpting these ice images, ice pieces. And I was like, "Oh, that's not me. I mean, I'm working with images, but I can't work with these ice." And he was like, "Anyway, but you think like an artist, so you will help." It was really beautiful. It was absolutely beautiful. Like two random, one Italian, one Spanish. Then just like I remember like going to that huge fridge, and he was showing me all these amazing pieces of ice, and then he was super excited. Like, of course I'm gonna help you. So he then constructed the mold, like the shape to create the right dimensions for the piece, and then he made all the pieces, and then when it was about paying him, of course, like we had a prize and everything was agreed, and then he said, "No, I can't take your money." What do you mean? I just can't take it because it's so beautiful, the idea that it just makes no sense to have this sort of transaction. And I was like, "No, but this is not the agreement because everybody needs money, and this is what we agreed." And he refused to take the money, so we needed to find a different agreement to that. And I found that again, like absolutely beautiful, right? Like how people, yeah, behave. Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
That's really, really cool. That's a good story.
yeah, it's
Uh,
beautiful.
especially since that it was almost gratuit, huh? So like
Yeah,
it was it was like kind of it's almost he got payment enough just being involved. I think that's great, so
yeah.
that's a really good story. So how did
So,
you evolve beyond that? And so you
mhm.
have this a next body of work.
Yeah.
Um, so talk to me about this next one that we're about to look at.
The next one that we can talk about is 1424. This project started in 2000, right after I came back from New York. Uh, the reason being is that I felt displaced. I felt, and don't get me wrong, I mean, I love the city and I had such a great time in New York. But again, when you're far away, whatever that means, you get to know yourself differently and often better. And the sense of belonging, not belonging, what place means, space, all these sort of questions that just pop up. And when I came back, I thought of how privileged I was to have had that experience in New York. And at the time, many people were, um, migrating from. Some of them just, unfortunately, just trying, to migrate and move from many countries in Africa to Europe. It was a huge tragedy that still is sadly is not solved.
Mm.
And that was again the moment of putting those pieces together. How can I work with anthropological knowledge, meaning movements, migration, and human movements, and with something that at the time I think I can work with it, which is photography, and the questions I have about place and space. And then the idea was, okay, I will try and translate a space into a place and a place into space. How could I do that, right? How, which there's no guideline for that, so at least I didn't know how to do that. And then I was always fascinated for a long time. I was fascinated by images are dark, like these dark images and blue images and all this look. Even if I didn't quite understand it, I loved it. That everything, the aesthetics, but also the technicalities, like many things. And I thought, okay, I know now how to put all those pieces together, and the solution is darkness. I will work with darkness as a creative method to talk about these issues that I want to talk. So instead of darkness being a context, then darkness will be a creative tool. And so I went to all these very specific places where people arrived from Africa. So locations that were selected in Italy, in Spain, in the Canary Islands, for example. And then I just visited those places and decided to take those images at night for many different reasons. But one of them was exactly that. How can I make this place completely unknown for me? Right? And going from Valencia is by the sea. So I'm familiar with that terrain, with that landscape. So how can I make it unknown? And darkness was the answer for me. So that's why I wanted to experience, obviously, like a 0.01%, obviously, of what these people always say. Like, I'm not even trying to compare, obviously, but it would be absolutely ugly to do that. But trying to be in a position that isn't comfortable and be there. And those places were sometimes dangerous, right? Like in the middle of nowhere, absolutely in the middle of nowhere at 4 a.m, surrounded by animals. That is just noises around. There's no light.
Yeah, it could definitely be dangerous, but I love the sea at night, especially when there's a full moon. There's a really interesting glow about things.
Yeah.
Almost a silverish, bluish look to it.
Yeah. That was like at first I was learning, at the time how to work in this difficult context. There is no light, so how the chemistry works, and the film reacts in a funny way when there's no light. So some of these images, they have 3 hours, up to 3 hours exposure, 2 hours, and a very long time. So that time gives time to understand the senses, how the senses work. When the camera sees more than you, actually, it's a very interesting experience, right? For example, this image was one of the first images of the project, if not the first. This was seen by the film and the camera, but not by me. I mean, this is the water and how the water moves. So this is the bed of the sea. This is just the ground. And because of the movement and the time allowed me to see the surface of the sea. So that was, again, a moment of revelation of like, hey, it's about giving time. It's about paying attention and the intention of being here. So if I'm here, I'll see and sense and understand certain things that require time, right? So this was one of those images where when I got the film back from the lab and I scanned it, and I was like, okay, there is potentiality, the possibilities here, and I'll take it from here, and then the rest of the images happened in like 7 years, I can't remember how many of those years, how many years, all right. And I really enjoyed it. It was again life-changing, right? Being in these places, looking at landscape and listening to landscape and learning with the landscape. It was something completely amazing for me.
With this, you're making a lot of different choices aesthetically. Talk to me about that. It seems almost minimalist in a way.
Yeah.
Because you're working with color fields, and it's not, you don't have too many color tones per se. You have some nice contrast, like this one has a really nice contrast on it. But Talk to me about that. Was it just kind of a different way of looking at image that was interesting for you?
Yeah, yeah. It was. I guess that I was beyond the aesthetics. Of course, it was a very experiential project. All right. So the choices, I knew that technically it was challenging. So I needed to work with darkness in a smart way. Because if like taking an image for like 3 hours, then it creates a very funny and special shadows because everything is in movement. So the shadows are not as defined as they should be. So you create this sort of imagination. When it comes to looking at these images, some of them they look a bit like fiction, right? Like uh, 3 hours of this, taking this image, for example, two and a half or something. Then you have this funny shadow that keeps moving and moving. So it gives the brain picks something up, something different. That yeah, please, that's my reading. And then I went to this. I wanted to play with. At night, you need to listen with your eyes and to see with your ears, and like the touch and everything. You need to become one. It sounds funny, but really, you need to be there, fully, 100% there. And these images, for example, I wanted to play with beyond the structures. I wanted to create a sense of confusion sometimes, and some of them they have this could look, it seems like a reflection, but it's not. Just
Yeah, it threw me off at first. Yeah, no, when you said confusion, I was like, yeah, and I'm like, that's not a reflection at all.
exactly, it's just a huge piece of rock in a valley that is called the Moon Valley in Sardinia, in Italy. And this place where like just some they used to take granite. I think you pronounce granite.
Granite.
Yeah, granite.
Yeah.
To like Romans, they used to take it from there. So, and it's called the Moon Valley. So I felt that it was worth it.
Moon Valley.
Yeah,
Love it.
and it's
really
photo,
it's perfect. Yeah, yeah. It's almost a lunar-esque. It's kind of got this almost outer worldly feel, like the colors and it's really interesting.
At first, I was paying, and that changed with time as well with doing this project. At first, I was a bit more focused on like more details, right, that the landscape could offer me, and trying to avoid certain repetitions, but I was trying to be as faithful as possible to the research that I had done at the time, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so it was this creative freedom and sticking to the research, and then I found myself integrating more and more and more context in the images. So for example, this one I think is a good example of trying to integrate more the context in the image. So I have images that are more present and others that are a bit more, so middle, highly, like never using a wide angle, because I don't use wide angle for landscape. It doesn't, to me at least, the way I see it, it didn't make sense for this particular project to use that. So
yeah, well, and you also have in a lot of those large formats, they kind of come with a normal lens, I think.
Yeah,
50 millimeter or whatever. So you just kind of have to work with it as you wish, And it's interesting how long the exposures are. I really like the one where you're looking inside of the wooded area, the forest or whatever. This one, yeah, I like that a lot, and it's almost unnatural, kind of, to a degree. It almost feels like it's not real, and I'm kind of curious what if that was kind of what you're intending, or what was the thought there?
Yeah, there is this way of putting it, which would be like more like unreal, and
Surreal almost. Yeah.
yeah, it's a term that I like, that from an anthropologist that I really like her work a lot. It's called Lisa Necessary, sorry, and she works about this feeling of unreality. She connects that with spiritual reality, which is one of her ethnographies and publications. But she, like that term, actually, because I was listening to one podcast while running the day, and I was, like listening to these ideas of her, and I think that unreal, kind of relates to this feeling of um, it is real, but doesn't. There are many realities in one, right? There is not only one, but there are many things. Same as there is multidimensional feeling of time, then multidimensional sensation of reality. Because the lack of light does what makes us understand and read and like reach whatever we have in front of us in a completely different way. It takes so much effort from us, as not just photographers, but as a viewer, as a spectator. You need effort to 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 get it to read the image, to be part of the image. So there is this sense of darkness allows you to be more part of it somehow, because distances are reduced in a really strange way, and again, the camera sees more than I see. So.
It's as far as aesthetically, it's like there's a few of them. I was like, if they ended up in the mail sent to me, I'd be like, okay, I'm done. I'm very happy. But I could see these being very popular in a gallery space. And so has this project made its way into a gallery? Has it been like shown, maybe even a book? I could see that as well. So
actually, I mean, these work was exhibited in several places. I worked with a couple of galleries, and then because this particular work was shown in Norderlicht, was shown in Foundation in Valencia, a really big space, and images are like printed like 2 meters. And the whole room is extremely dark, or it was extremely dark. That was also part of the experience of creating with darkness. And then here I wanted to show you part of that exhibition, which was a little piece, again, working with eyes. Here, I think, there you go. So this piece was created for that particular exhibition. Again, I wasn't done with working with eyes.
Doesn't look like it. Did you use your friend in Italy?
Sorry?
Did you ask your friend in Italy to help you again?
No. This was a professional company. I don't think he was able to just. I think I poor him. He helped me a lot.
I won't tell him.
No. I didn't want to bother him again. No, hey, let's do the same, but 20 times bigger and heavier. And like
massive. Yeah.
Like a massive.
How tall is this?
That was actually big. That was like, I forgot, but it was almost like 2 meters.
Mm-hmm.
That piece was almost like 2 meters, I think.
Okay.
And 3 wide, something like that. It was massive in the space. So the idea was, again, while contemplating those images, from 1424 was the project. Then you hear ice melting, and then the stones falling and making this huge noise, and then interrupting the whatever you were doing, because the idea was I was projecting a video on this ice wall, and then eventually, when everything just vanished and melted, then the video was projected, right? So that was this, and I think here you can see the stones already. So each one of them made a huge noise. And it was a very interesting moment, how to expand image making, working with installation, sculpture, video, and
I
how.
think it's really interesting. Noise, especially at night, it can be very jarring, especially when you hear things fall and crack and stuff like that. You just assume there's a huge animal out there stalking you or something. So like I can imagine kind of recreating that experience in a gallery space was probably really, really fun. Now, do you have any fun stories about people getting scared from? Because I'm sure you hear a crash and you just like, what? Yeah.
I mean, it was actually, I think I got more scared when I was taking the photographs. And the first images that I took of that project, I think it's also interesting in terms of process. At first, I was listening to music. It was a way of being at 3 a.m. in the middle of nowhere and trying to not be scared of like, no, everything is fine. Nothing is going to happen. Even though there is a cliff and you cannot see it, you'll make it. And music was helping me to do that. But then just made no sense. I was missing so much.
That's true.
It didn't make any sense. I needed to be part of it. And so the music went away. And then all the sounds and everything started to inspire and influence the process. And then that was again one of the very interesting insight, which is how sound helps understand our futures. So you can't see, but sound is helping you understand what's coming next. So if you're able to recognize the sound, then you know that you're safe. Therefore, you always expect the same sound to happen, to have this feeling of security, safety. So you're always projecting this hope that you're going to be fine into the near future, and you're relying on sound to do that because you can't see, right? So it's this very dark landscape, but sound was guiding me through the night at the time. So it was then those moments where the brain starts to integrate and to put all the pieces together, right? In terms of, it's not just the image, but it's everything, how this image ends up on a wall or ends up somewhere else in a book or something else.
Yeah, I get to thinking about, when you were saying the way you think about the future or whatever, and I was thinking about your installation, and I was thinking about the sound and so on, and I just can't stop thinking about this idea of anticipation.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And depending on your slant for anticipating something good to happen or something bad to happen, or whatever that is, it's so much of our life is spent anticipating something.
Yeah, I recently participated in one conference that is called Anticipation.
Really? That word's really powerful. So, and it sounds like you were playing with that in some ways.
Yeah, I mean, if you, like understanding that project from an anthropological point of view and human point of view, of course, then you think of the people trying to reach Europe with all the hopes for a better future for them, right? So they're just trying to have a better life and to be okay, to live in peace, to work their asses off, whatever they have to do, to like everybody, but most of us, we don't have to risk our lives. We're extremely lucky for that. So we take that for granted often. And part of that project was also thinking of in this movement, and like that's why it was one of the reasons why darkness was so important. Is because technically you need so much time to take those images. So this time also leads you to understand movement in a different way. If you're talking about human movement, then it's also a beautiful way to put all the pieces together, right? And understanding movement a bit deeper. And it has to do with futures, like exactly like how photography is about the future or futures.
Can be. Yeah. Yeah. That's so talk to me about the name of 1424. Where does that come from?
1424 is the distance between like the closest points, Africa and between Africa and Europe.
Yes.
I think it's the Gibraltar is the best distance in kilometers. So it's reachable. It's not that far away, and yet, it's a distance that destroys lives.
Wow. Okay. That's really quite powerful there. You've kind of inspired me to take some night photography, do some night stuff. Yeah. But I need my wits about me, so I won't listen to music like you. I need to be able to hear. But that's interesting. I like how you kind of reflecting. It's like a multifaceted, has multiple faces to it, multiple contemplations. I really like your idea of installation. I like how you are kind of working with it. And then this ice, is this a narrative that you kind of pull through everything now? or is it just these two? You're like, I have one more idea. Yeah.
I know the next one is gonna be about ice as well. Of course, that's I get it right once. Now I'm joking. Actually, I don't think I love to work. I mean, with ice, but it just doesn't make any sense anymore. It's just time, right? The reason for being that using ice again or water, it was more about water. It's because living in Switzerland, there is this Fiehrquelle, it's in Gotthard, where pretty much all the water from Europe happens from there. So it's this source of water for Europe, and the big rivers, they kind of happen. So, and that was a time where Europe was and it still is, like extremely restrictive, and the human movements were highly impacted by policies and laws, and and decisions that put people at risk. So for me, like Switzerland kind of being sort of a bit of the heart of Europe, or being in the heart of Europe, and this source of water, this made sense to use it in a way of, like, again, as a metaphor of water unites. Like I'm using this river, like water coming from a river, and we're working with water from the sea. So the idea was to melt these two types of water together, and that was the piece. It was about, I can't remember, I forgot about the name, but it was about the time that takes to melt this huge piece for the river, the water coming from a river. So you could say that's sweet water. Do you guys say sweet water? It's not salty water, but it's
fresh water.
Yeah. So it's not the water from the sea, but it's river water.
And fresh water mixed with salt water. Yeah. Yeah.
Except fresh water. And then both just melt and then just become water. Right. So that was, again,
interesting.
The idea behind it.
This is also like where fresh water and salt water mixes, usually at the mouth of a river delta. Mm-hmm. That's usually where they connect, and it's where they mix. It's interesting. I just think I like how you're kind of thinking holistically and kind of bringing multiple meanings into things, and it's really interesting. And you have another project that I looked at before that we're going to look at as well.
Yeah.
But this one is a little bit more personal, like the first one we looked at, correct? And kind of going back into that love for anthropology, but your own kind of personal history a little bit. And so talk to me about that project as well.
We're talking about Becoming Exergy.
Yeah.
This project was about working with time, with distance, with, again, like family archive, and uh, family files, and then the fact that I live in Switzerland, and that they my grand aunt in the 60s, she moved to Venezuela, and I always wonder how her experience was in in the 60s in Venezuela and Caracas. So as a kid, I loved her. She was this amazing character who would speak Catalan with a Venezuelan accent, and I was blown away. I was like, how is that even possible? I mean, but she was able to do it, and I really were her like this magical entity. Had a huge impact on me growing up. So what I did was I found this book where she had all the postcards that back then in the 60s she sent to my family in Spain. So they were all beautifully organized. And I just went through them, had a look, got really inspired by that, like time and people that I would just show, like this ones, for example, right? So this is what I'm talking, these sort of images that were uh, part of her repertoire. This is what she used to send. So what I did was, okay, how could I, again, through time and space, create a bit of a dialogue between, her experience and my experience, me living in Switzerland and my grand aunt living in Venezuela back then. So I had a look to my landscape and with 70 years apart, right? So, or not 70, but maybe 60 years. So I tried to create this dialogue between her postcards and my Swiss postcards at the end of the day. I think they look like postcards because that was the intention, right? Like, how can I work with these images? And here is, as you can see, this is one postcard divided fragments, and the idea was to. I think you can see that there is a bit of a. This is her own writing. These are her letters and what she used to say to my family. And so I took that and I combined it with the image to create these lenticular images. These photographs that I, I don't know exactly the time that they were created for the first time, but to me, they were popular in the 60s and 70s. So these images that when you move them, then something appears or disappears, and they're very playful in a way. So I wanted to create that sense as well because she was very playful. So by recreating her writing and some of her words, then I wanted the people to move again, to be moved and to move. So in order to read and see the image, you need to be displaced from your own axis. So I'm forcing you to see the images in a different way, forcing you, suggesting whatever you want to express it. And then I left, again, some of the blank spaces are, yeah, like memory is gone, parts of the image that are not complete. Like,
So these are the what kind of an image is that when you say you have to move in order to kind of see it? What's that called again?
lenticular, like it's a
Yeah,
lenticular image. So you have 2 or 3 images, or even up to 5, I think, put together, and then when you have them together, then you create the sense of something that appears and something that disappears when you move the paper left to right or up down, right?
gotcha.
Um, so that's exactly it. You have these images, and if like they were on the gallery space, so spectators walking around, they would see they sometimes they were able to see the writing, and sometimes they were not able to see the writing. Like here it says vosotros, which I love that word. In Spanish it's clear, but in English it's you, like in plural and in singular. So it has this connotation, this openness, and it's something that she used to obviously to write.
Yeah.
So these particular images. I think actually, I don't know if you can see it, but I'll stop sharing. It's one also that I have here, the back.
It's that exact one, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. It's all set up. It's just perfect, So no, it just happened to be there.
You did that on purpose. No,
Exactly.
I know. This was well
It's
planned in
warning.
advance. Yeah. No, so I can see a little bit of writing in it right
Yeah.
now, but as you move around it, you see it a little bit more clearly, and then it disappears and stuff like that. So
Exactly.
yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah. So those
So
were your images.
do you always like think about like your images in space? Do you always think about it with a viewer in mind?
I I try and integrate it, yeah, because
Interesting.
it's the part of it can be as personal, as intellectual, as whatever you want to call it. But if you leave the people out, then I I don't think you're. It's not about helping people. It's about like if you think of the people, then somehow they're also part of the whatever you're doing. So it's in a way, it's not that you do it for somebody else, but in my case, I think that it's important to think of the people who's gonna see it somehow, because of course it's not a big image. Needs certain size to see certain details or not, and then that kind of conditions size, right, or dimensions that will be printed, or if it's going to end up in a book or it's just a website or something. This is the exact same thing. I always like the idea that I always found that images are kind of they're flat, it's like 2D. So
Yeah.
how could I break that? How could I play with a third dimension, fourth dimension, or different dimensions that exist, and how can I play with them? And to me, that was maybe just one way to create depth, the depth that I'm trying to add to the project. There are many ways, and this is one of them. That's why I loved it, because it's playful. It asks the people to move if they want to see and understand better the project. And again, like this displacement, I like this idea of me forcing you somehow to move away from your own axis and see things from a different perspective. I always love that.
I think it's interesting just to kind of think about, because like, I don't know, I never really ever think about I don't, I don't know a lot of people that honestly think about their work already in space as they're making it. And so like, it's interesting to kind of hear your consideration there. And it seems as if the experience is as important as the image, if not more important, because it seems like you're trying to bring that element always. And you're speaking to another dimension that photography in itself doesn't have. And it seems like there's a limitation to photography that you're always trying to consider. And I'm curious what your thoughts are on that, because photography is limited in that aspect. It has no sound. It's static. It's so it seems like you're always trying to solve that problem. And I'm curious why why do that?
Oh gosh, that's okay. I, I that's a tough question. I think that the reason why is because I sense the possibility in 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 the object, in this document or index, or the way we want to describe not just the image, but again this sort of entity. And I like the relationship that is created by the viewer and the image in itself. So I always try and explore in a more dimensional way. that does. Maybe I know that I'm not being very clear about it, because to me, I always found this like limitation, right? Like photography, and I could see myself just scrolling through books sometimes and being sometimes like particularly attracted to certain images, but after a certain time, or then they're just flat. There's 2D. And nothing wrong with that. There is absolutely nothing wrong with it. That's what it is. But I felt that I wanted to explore something else that was part of this process, right? Of this creative process. And this technique, for example, allows to do that. Working with ice is installation, but always is in combination to something else. For example, briefly, I can show you this to give you another example of what I mean by trying to a bit break. And I do that
It
for
seems
myself.
like it seems like it's almost like you're, and I don't want to create some kind of thing, but like think for you, but it seems like you're almost frustrated with the limitations of photography. You want it to give you more, it seems like, and you find all these creative ways to, I don't know, intervene into that limitation.
Yeah, I mean, that's why one way of seeing it. There is frustration. I think there is a sense of possibility more than frustration.
I don't want to use that word.
Yeah.
I will let me just refresh. And there's nothing wrong with your argument, but I think that I feel more comfortable saying that it is a way of sensing the possibility in photography, or again, photography always, for example, related to photo and graphy, right? Writing with light, and I always thought, where is darkness in that word? When images are created sometimes in dark, we have the camera that is absolutely dark there, and then we have the dark room and all these things. So why are we always talking about light? For example, so I was just trying to see things from slightly different perspectives to try and see if there is space to add something to the conversation. Essentially, it's like trying to add something. There are so many outstanding, amazing artists and photographers who are absolutely gifted, and it's hard to add something to the conversation. So creating noise is something that I'm not particularly fond of. I don't like to create more noise, but if I can add something, I'll try my best.
And so you have an example here. You kind of,
yeah, this is against trying to going a bit. It's using images, but it's not using photography, right? And it's trying to create volume. It's trying to create different narrative, which I'm just trying to make it big right now. This work happened in Taiwan, where I was working. For 6 months again, I got a grant. I was super lucky to spend 4. It was not 6, it was 4 months working with porcelain. I was working with finishing this project and working with photography as well. So I had these 3 different projects at the same time working. And particularly this one, again, allowed me to explore different dimensions of images, right? This is videos, a video projection on these materials. And the videos are essentially, again, experiences, right? It's me. How could I describe it? Each video is a view from sky view, right? So I place the camera on my chest, I lay on the ground, and then I place the camera there, and then I stop breathing for as long as I can. So I wanted to see how my lack of oxygen was influencing the video, like the image, the creation of that image. So you can sense the movement of my heart beating faster and faster and faster because of lack of oxygen. So I made those videos, and the audio that you have are like influential political speeches, like historical ones from Margaret Thatcher and Reagan, many other politicians. And basically, the idea was, again, to be playful in a way, like what could I add to this, right? So it was not about the words. The sound was not about the words, but the sound was about the silence. So what I did was just to cut the words of the speech and then just leave the breathing. I wasn't breathing; they were breathing. So let's just put those things together. So when you're watching those images and you sense that the sky is bumping because my heart is just faster, it goes faster and faster, then what you hear are these politicians breathing. And that creates kind of stress because it's hard to identify. But to me, it was about silence. Like, okay, I'm breathing, silence, and breathing. And then the combination with this movement that is, again, highly experiential. So yeah, these are images. Here, I think you can. It was one of the exhibition spaces. That was one of the pieces that was there, which, in combination with the videos. So again, what just supporting your argument of no, it's not frustration. To me, is addition. So, or getting rid of something. What can I add, or what can I get rid of in order to contribute?
It's interesting. I'm quite kind of fascinated by you. Partly due to the fact is so many photographers we think kind of within the traditional kind of photography borders, like a framed image on a wall, a series told in a narrative style, and then also maybe even possibly turn that into a book. Lots of photographers make books. Even if you were to do kind of diving into the archive per se, you can even shift that around and allow a research to tell a certain narrative based off of kind of the past. But like so much of what I've seen so far with your work is that you do a really nice job of interpreting that into space and into a gallery setting, and you think multidimensionally, which is really quite refreshing. And I don't talk to a lot of people like that, so it's interesting to kind of hear you thinking on that level and on that plane. And I'm curious, like, you hinted at it a little bit. You're not frustrated with the limitations of photography. You use this word addition in a lot of ways, and I'm like, I guess I'm kind of curious. It's like, do you love like this idea of an exhibition? And I hear this word from you a lot, which is play. Are you playing? Are you are you like, is this you expressing yourself and allowing yourself? Yeah, I'm going to go back to your original word at the beginning with our first project, where you're saying, this is when I first let go. I was learning to let go. And it seems like in a lot of ways, your practice is about letting go and letting be and thinking outside of a box and allowing yourself to expand. And I want to see, based off of kind of that interpretation, is that kind of what's important to you? And is this why you kind of express yourself in this way? Talk to me a little bit about that. Am I on to something here?
Yeah, you are. And actually, we spoke a bit briefly before, off camera. We spoke about the need of growth, of growing and movement. And if we don't do that, then we die somehow. It's a bit dramatic.
I shared a dramatic quote previously before this, and I can bring it up now. It's like, They said if it comes from a quote that says, if you're not living, you're dying, or if you're not moving, you're moving backwards. It's like, it's this kind of idea is if you stop growing, then you start dying kind of thing. It's that kind of thing. It's something my father used to tell me. And so, we can hear that. So just to bring everybody into our conversation before again, so I'll let you kind of finish your response there.
It's absolutely beautiful, and maybe that also inspired me just to continue. Like the argument, which I think isn't my own little truth, right? Of okay, I can do this. I can be half good at or at taking, creating images. I can do that. I know the techniques. I love it. But this exploration in the exploration in the unknown, in the dark, again, it's like exists possibility of becoming, of transformation, moving, and then it's not about moving on to whatever is new or is just there on the other side. It's, to me, is more like the sense of openness that happens in not. We already have enough limitations and constrictions in our lives, right? And we do these things because it's a way of not just communicating or expressing, but a way of being and a way of making, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I love those terms. One of my beloved thinkers and anthropologists, Tim Ingold, it's about being. It's not just about doing things, it's about being part of something. And there is certain wisdom that happens when we allow ourselves to be. And I think in that being, and it's becoming a bit philosophical, but when it comes, I really like this idea of what you said. In this, when we play, we are not focused on the goal. We're not just focused on that, and at least myself, I'm not just focused on that. So I try and create the space for things to evolve and emerge in a certain way and be ready for change. So if I can integrate these sort of images in one project that could be pretty flat, and there's nothing wrong, again, with that, I'll try and add this playful thing, because it just makes it makes us a bit lighter. Life can be heavy, so if I can bring a bit of joy into something, then I'll try and do it. And I think by being playful is something and it's something that I always try and get better at, because I always thought that my work was so serious and so inside of my head, and in mein Kopf, as we say in German, and I try to integrate all these playful aspects of my life, which I do have, and it's really important, because it's this little kid or this little teenager that keeps learning in every single project. And why not?
I got to thinking about you and your practice, and as I listen to you, it's what a cool privilege to have, to kind of use your work to grow, to think. To one of my favorite lines, I don't know if it comes from a movie or not, maybe someone can put it in the comments, but I'm a human being, not a human doing. Yeah, I love that. And that's the first thing I thought of when you were saying is it's just like you're just being, and you get this really cool opportunities with these like grants and these opportunities to go places to kind of be and to think. And I love how you kind of break the two-dimensionality of a photograph. And it's in our world, and I was I'm kind of reflecting on Perry Photo. I was just there, and so many of these are these white boxes all set up in a row, and they're all these two-dimensional things and up on the wall, and everyone buys and sells these postcards or whatever, it's like a trading fair. And but when I listen to you, it's one of the things that kind of drew me to fine art in general. Is you can actually use the medium in interesting ways to kind of express the very nature of being as a human. And I know there's a lot of people, that's very philosophical in a sense. And you were like, I don't want to get philosophical, but I love getting philosophical. That's the great
Okay,
thing
thank
about it.
you.
I love it. We need to be thinking about life and stuff, and
Yeah, we do.
and thinking about what it means to be in general. Some of my favorite reading is about that. I love philosophy in a lot of ways, but I think we don't have too much time here as I look at the time here. And so I just have a few final questions for you. And my next thing is, what are you working on now? What are you thinking about and doing today?
What I'm working is like I'm actually is working on this project for I've been working on it for like 5 years now. So it's a long time. So I'll try and briefly show just like something again expanding a bit of again we're working with different materials and working like the whole idea was to work with porcelain. Porcelain is a very powerful material that has memory, that contains so many, yeah, stories and and histories and extremely deep uh, and rich material that actually I knew nothing about like 6 years ago or so. And I decided to learn more about it. So that was part of the grant in Taiwan, creating or recreating these pieces in porcelain. Like it's a one-to-one replica of um, very specific pieces from empires, uh, like historical empires, Spanish and British, you name it. So all those huge empires, they created very specific uh, ceramics, and I was trying to pay attention to that and work with these ideas of again of colonization and protection and landscape. So I was working with types of flora, what types of plants were connected to these particular landscapes. And again, I've been working for the last 5 years on that and working with porcelain with this material.
I'm not
Which
surprised. I'm not surprised you're doing ceramics and porcelain and stuff, because you don't think in 2D. If anything, you're thinking 4D. And so like, how cool is that? What kind of photography is that?
that's you mean like the images?
Yeah, because that doesn't
That's
look like
pollen.
it's what now?
Pollen. These particles that flow from one flower to the other.
Yeah, pollen.
Pollen. Oh man. Sorry. I
Yeah.
it was like
Hey, I don't know how the image is created. I guess is it kind of
microscopic image. And
I'm curious
and
about the
then
product.
like working with archives, working with found images, working with my own images, working with all different types of sources and techniques to try and make sense of an idea, not even a narrative, but just an idea. And and yeah, like how is memory in porcelain related to landscape, and how landscape and the memory in landscape is related to image making and photography, and the relationship between power and porcelain and all these sort of feedback loops, right? That
Yeah.
exist. So, and the dark side of landscape, right, which has to do with colonization and appropriation and these sort of things. So that has been going on for quite a bit now, 5 years, 6 years, 2018, I think I started, and that was Taiwan,
Oh wow.
2019 to me, and and now I'm just fighting for my life and working on my PhD. Working on a PhD is tough.
It's awesome.
Yeah, and yeah, so I'm just putting all those ideas together. Is a PhD in art and anthropology, where I focus on futures and darkness and how is that related. So I'm producing work that is inspired and influenced by the research, and then trying to again to add something to the conversation of how do we reframe darkness as something positive and creative and effective. We think of light pollution. We think of how we just simply alter and modify every aspect of our beings just because we have too much of, of everything. Because we need to see. And I find that reflection fascinating because we can also hear and touch and sense in many different ways. So
I think it's cool. You're getting a chance to kind of take your work and turn it into a research and pursue a PhD, and that's awesome. I'm excited to see what it all kind of collects to be. I'm sure once it gets into a gallery, it's going to be immersive. I better be invited. I'll be. I'm coming. You're not very far from me. I think I can make it.
because you're living in Paris, right?
Yeah. I'm in Paris. So yeah, I'm at a 4-hour train. Yeah, it's not very far. Yeah.
We should definitely do that. And you're about to do your PhD as well, so we need to support each other in this crazy time space.
Yeah, it's something I'm considering. So yeah, definitely. I just have one more question for you, and it's the one question that I finish off with everybody, and it's for everyone out there that follows our show. They're image makers, artists themselves, and I always like to give them a little nugget of advice. You know what I mean? So what would you tell someone that wanted to be an image maker? Or I've been reframing and I've been asking this every time. It's what would you tell your younger self? You know what I mean? What kind of advice would you give your younger self? Had I had known that, I would have done things a little different. But I'll let you answer that. Either one of those questions. You pick. What would you tell somebody, or what would you tell your younger self?
Ooh, okay.
There you go.
Younger self. Thank you. And you say that's a highly philosophical one. So,
I know exactly what I would have said.
Yeah.
Don't go to that. I'm just kidding.
Don't do that again. Don't do that again.
You could just avoid that job. Yeah.
Think twice. Yeah, like this is a really funny story. I had briefly, I think, explains, why I'm still doing what I do, which is, first I wanted to become a musician and play guitar, to best my knowledge, and I do whatever I can with a fixed string, and I enjoy it. And that was I wanted to become a professional musician. And then my dad was so against it, right? Every normal dad, just would do is just study something else.
Have a backup.
Have a backup. But so photography came into my life, and then I started to do this, and I got some prizes and here and there, and I was starting to learn how to do what I do. And I had my first solo exhibition that was in Italy. I was 24, I think, at the time. And for whatever reason, the news, my dad was driving to his work. And then it was on the radio that Juan Fabuel had a show in Italy. What was going to happen, a solo show in Italy. Don't ask me how that happened. But my dad listened to that on his way to work. He called me and he said, Juan, they just said your name on the radio. And I said, did they? Are you kidding me? How come? It's yeah, you're having this show in Italy. Yeah, that's true. I said, I don't know what you're doing. Whatever you're doing, just keep doing it. And I was and I said, okay, that's a good advice. So that maybe that would be something, if you feel you're onto something, just keep doing it.
Yeah.
Just keep doing it. I mean, things will change. Things will be hard. You'll be Juan, the younger Juan, I'll be inspired. I am inspired by different things. I'm inspired by different topics, by different people. And it's okay. It's fine, as long as you remain open, that things are imperfect, that things keep changing, that arriving to a place doesn't mean to stay in that place, and that you will keep just moving and things is going to be bumpy, but this journey is going to be full of beautiful moments. So that will only happen if you keep doing what you sense you have to do. So it's sort of like listen to yourself, listen to your guts. If you truly believe that you have to do it, just do it.
Interesting. It's good stuff. I love it. I think just keep doing it. It's just I instantly went to a Disney movie. Just keep swimming. The very famous. But no, I love it. I love it. There's something very powerful about persistence.
And what would you say to yourself? I mean,
are you asking me now? I never get asked this question.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. No. It's true. You're asking me. I appreciate it. Well, what would I ask myself? Tell myself. I think I would have told myself to keep doing the art degree.
All right.
I didn't. I quit halfway through, and I became.
Okay.
I did business, and I would have told myself just to trust my artistic nature, because every class I always did better in the art classes, art and sciences, believe it or not. But when I went into business, I was like an average student.
Okay. Well,
but I did okay, but it wasn't. I would have probably told myself, lean into it, and don't be so swayed by the common things people do in order to keep themselves, feeling secure. I think people feel secure in tradition, and so they fear breaking from and becoming something else that they know nothing about. And so now I have a lot of people that are not artists in their lives, and they've never really kind of gone that direction. So they didn't know anything about it. So they were like, I don't know. And so I wish I wouldn't have listened. I just wish I would have dove in. And because, when you do pursue something and you go a certain direction, you meet all the people you need to meet anyway. You know what I mean? So
that's a really good point.
Yeah, it'll happen. And so just because they don't see it yet, it's probably because they haven't gone that way yet, and so doesn't mean they're wrong either, and so you just have to kind of trust and kind of keep going and staying persistent, like you said. So thank you so much for coming on. Yeah. Go ahead.
Thank you.
You were going to add something. No, I don't want you to. That's you were going to add something. What were you going to add?
No, exactly that. I mean, if you remain open, to this change, and you just keep adding, I think that it's not for the sake of adding, but not things are going to change anyway. So it's all right. It's absolutely fine. And that things are, again, imperfect, and because the important thing is that it's done, and that it's really difficult to say it's done and then you move into something else. So keep that in mind, that it's important to, and then move on to the next thing.
Yeah. I love it. Now I'm going to just say thank you for coming on. It was awesome. Thank you so much for sharing your time with me and my audience. It was a wonderful conversation today.
Likewise, Patrick. Absolute pleasure. Thanks for having me and for letting me, be part of beautiful project. So
So share with us how we can connect with you.
Oh, well, that's a good question. These days, I'm not much on Instagram, these sort of things. I need to focus on writing a PhD, but my website, juanfabuel.com, that's people can connect with that. And same thing, Juan Fabuel on Instagram. They will find me.
Perfect.
Well, happy to be in touch with whoever.
That's awesome. So that's where they can connect with you. They can also look at your work there too, and kind of read up on on your work. Once again, thank you so much. It was awesome.
Yeah. Thank you, Patrick. And stay in touch, and we chat some.
Of course. And to all those that have made it this far, thank you so much for joining us on the Urbanaut Podcast. If you like content like this, please like, share, and comment down below. That is a great way to support the show. That's one way to kind of tell the computers out there that we need new audiences. So if you like, share, and comment, that helps support the show. As well as if you want to take your support a little deeper with us, you can also become a member on our Patreon and become a paid subscriber there. That's one way you can kind of support us so that we can bring more artists to you. You can also do that on Patreon and also on Spotify. You can become a paid subscriber there too. So those are the two ways you can support us. And as always, we'll see you next time.